In the early 2000s, few shows on the airwaves hit the same stratosphere as Malcolm in the Middle did. If you were a kid growing up in this time, you saw the show all the freaking time. Always a fixture after school as we embarked on our slow drudge toward adulthood and the ravages that life had in store for us. Wait, sorry, I'm going too deep there. Life is unfair. Nevertheless, it's a show that still holds a special place in the hearts of our generation, and at the center of it all, the main protagonist, Malcolm. Obviously, played by the altogether well-known actor, Frankie Muniz. Coinciding with the rise in popularity of the show, Muniz's fame was on its own rapid rise that would make him one of the more recognizable faces of the time. He was described as one of the more marketable teens in Hollywood and was being nominated for Emmys and Golden Globes. He never won any, but, how many of you won? Beyond the show, however, he also made his mark on the motion picture scene. And while not exactly Citizen Kane here, it really did seem that he was set for life, destined for a vast filmography and a family that would not have to work again for 3 generations. But of course, along with the little pocket change that this vocation provides you, it also opens doors for connections, a little more opportunities to further explore your passions, whatever they may be. And I think you can probably guess, outside of this world of make-believe, what Frankie's own passions were. The Daytona 500 NASCAR race is a festival in and of itself. The prestige and the hype around this event is a prime PR opportunity for any celeb selling their film, show, sporting event, petting zoo, whatever. Thus, typically you get a guest or two wandering the paddock or even driving the pace car to start the race. Malcolm in the Middle was at the height of its popularity and, as you would have guessed, Muniz would be the one entrusted to lead the field around to the start. He was also a guest of honor at the MB2 Motorsport pit, and all the while, camera crews followed him around as he donned an M&M's jacket and gathered signatures from everywhere that he went, though the 3 ones that he managed to acquire on his jacket were Ken Schrader, Sterling Marlin, and Dale Earnhardt. There was an otherworldly level of foreshadowing at play here, because only a couple of hours after Muniz pulled off the side of the racetrack to let the race commence, everything changed.
This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident in turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt.
Of course, he couldn't have known. No one could possibly have known heading into that day that we would lose one of the greats. Nonetheless, like it did with a lot of people that day, the loss of Dale hit him hard. He was a huge fan of NASCAR, thus like with a lot of people, Dale wound up being a hero of his. The two had actually met before the race, with Dale saying that Muniz's show had actually brought Dale's own family closer together, and you can imagine the gut punch that would have been afterwards. It was a dark day in the sport, and one that does live on in infamy, though it did nothing to tarnish his own love of the game. Ever since 1977, the Long Beach Grand Prix event held an annual pro-celebrity race. It was a unique concept where the racing was about as unserious as you would think it would be, but on occasion, there would be the odd 1 or 2 celebrities that would be mildly competent in the art of racecraft. In 2004, Muniz would give this competition a go and would finish 7th overall in his first ever outing. The following year, he returned and would finish 3rd overall and the winner of the celebrity class. All things considered, it wasn't too shabby, but it was also around this time that Malcolm in the Middle was starting to wrap up production. His career as an actor wasn't so much floundering as it was changing. It was at a point where he was transitioning from a child actor to a proper serious one. Whether he was going to maintain his cultural status or not was not so certain, but he was also at an age now where he could start to look at investing in other ventures if he so pleased. And really, what should stop one doing that? Something that could help tell the world that you're not the boss of me now. Help you forget that life is unfair. Just make life whatever you want it to be. Only question is, will it actually work out? He was exploring the possibility of buying into a race team as an owner. Figured it would be pretty cool to follow in the footsteps of fellow celebrities such as Patrick Dempsey, Paul Newman, and Jackie Chan. But when he was offered a test drive of a Formula BMW race car in the latter stages of 2005, he thought, yeah, you know what? This is way better. And so for 2006, he signed with Jensen Motorsport to compete in the Formula BMW USA Series, driving a beam some of the better young drivers coming up through the ranks in North America. His car ran largely sponsorless for the majority of the season, and that is a little bit jarring when these things cost 6 figures a season to run. But by this time, Frankie would have had some coin in his purse thanks to those acting gigs, so maybe financials would have been the least of his worries. But still, a little extra can't possibly hurt, whether you're racing or storytelling. You like that segue? Well, me neither. But regardless, whether it's the small, trivial stuff such as keeping in touch with your family, or the slightly more important stuff such as online banking, keeping that sensitive information of yours safe is of the utmost importance. Having a digital safeguard handy is paramount. Who do I recommend? That's a stupid question, isn't it? Surfshark is a VPN service that protects your information by encrypting all the data that you send through the internet, thereby concealing yourself from all known forms of barnistry. This thing would even protect you from the ravages of Austin Hill. But this ain't a one-trick pony. You guys want more, don't you? Okay, so we all know the struggles of wanting to watch some cinematic masterpiece that we spontaneously remembered one day, only to search it up on streaming services and why is it not here? In this country anyway. Well, thanks to Surfshark, you can change your location, at least virtually, and break free from the shackles of geo-enabling. It ain't quite teleportation, but it is about as close as we're gonna get right now. So, secure your privacy with Surfshark. Click the link in the description box below or use code JOSHREBEL at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Attaining the highest level of security in the land will only come at a cost to you of about a couple of bucks a month, much cheaper than a season of Formula BMW, for example. Plus, you're gonna get those 4 free months and a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So what the bloody hell are you waiting for? Well, in the case of Mr. Muniz, running a largely sponsorless car isn't always a bad thing, because if a blank car is running around up the front, it does give the impression of a dude punching well above his weight, or that he's got way too much private funding. The problem was that year's grid consisted of the likes of Robert Wickens, Sebastian Saavedra, Simona Di Silvestro, and Stefano Coletti. If you're unfamiliar with any of those drivers, there's just 2 things that you do need to know. Firstly, they are fast. And secondly, Frankie wasn't any of them. He wasn't even close to them. Let me be a little bit more candid about this. That year's champion was Wickens on 149 points. Want to know where Frankie was in relation to him? Well... There. 30th. The lowest of all full-time contestants and no points to his credit. It may seem a little bit harsh to rag on a dude who had never even contested go-karts on the lead up to his open wheeler debut, but there was no getting around the fact that this was a low way to begin your journey. Still, that didn't stop him from heading to Europe to compete in the Formula BMW World Final. Now, instead of having just Wickens to worry about, he would also now be racing against the likes of Daniel Ricciardo. Yes, really. In 2006, Daniel Ricciardo was racing against Frankie Muniz. Needless to say, he struggled for pace there too, finishing toward the back in pretty much every session and placed 31st out of 36 drivers. But while Formula 1 ambitions were out of the question, America did have the Indy racing scene, and the racing there is better than whatever Formula 1 coughs up most of the time, I think. So he plunged into the Formula Atlantic feeder series once again with Jensen Motorsport. But once again, the results weren't all that ultra amazing. It was a tough field and there were a new set of tracks and cars to learn, but we have seen rookies come in and do well before on their first outing, and Frankie didn't do too well. Thus he finished 22nd overall that season when the track morphed into a lake on Sunday and drowned half the field. He didn't exactly embarrass himself here. I've definitely seen worse drivers than this Donny, but there was a bit to improve on, and I mean, he's not stupid. Even he knew that, and heading into the new season of 2008, he knew what the first order of business when it came to self-improvement had to be. Cut bait with his team and switch allegiances. Now at a new team and with experience on hand, wouldn't you know it, he improved, finishing 11th for the year, with top 10s becoming more commonplace toward the tail end of the season. I mean, yes, his teammate did finish 6th in the standings with multiple podiums and wins to his name, but that's a minor detail. But now he could revel in the fact that he was no longer toward the back of the field. He was now toward the middle.
Boo! You suck!
Anyways, he returned for a third attempt at the championship for 2009, switching teams once again, now at Team Stargate Worlds alongside Simona de Silvestro. It was another improvement for him this year, with his best result coming in Tooele, Utah, with a 4th placing and gaining the most positions of any driver on that grid. But by and large, Simona kicked his ass that year, and then a back and wrist injury sidelined him for the last few rounds. What the hell kind of gymnastics was he doing to pull that off? Well, anyway, the pain of that injury was nothing compared to the pain of what he would lose because of it. Apparently, there were plans for Frankie for 2010, plans that would see him racing in IndyCar. Huh? Now, look. I love cats that try to make a run out of being a racing driver, especially those who aspire to the highest levels of the sport, and I especially love those of whom ignore overarching criticism from their peers who say that their eyes are bigger than their stomach. But not even so much as a podium to his credit in the 3 years on the road to Indy, and he was going to try and run around with these dogs? With the Dario Franchittis, the Scott Dixons, the Will Powers, the Milka Dunos? Imagine those two sniping at each other for 32nd place on the grid. It was kind of shocking to unearth the fact that it got this far, because this would have been a bridge way too far, a task too extreme, a venture just way beyond his reach. I know it sounds kind of harsh, but you do gotta wonder if there was some amount of self-reflection going on here, because save for a couple of races in 2011 in the MX-5 Cup and Toyota Pro Celebrity Race, this would be the last time that Frankie Muniz would ever set foot into a racing car. For the next decade, he spent most of his time either on set, in a band, or generating passive income through flipping real estate. I have feelings about that. The times of him strolling through the paddock in race gear seem to be a distant memory at this point, a piece of lore buried well beneath his Wikipedia page, something that most people wouldn't have known about him, and would never come to know since he never added on to what he had done before. That was until the year 2021 came about. Out of nowhere, it seemed, Muniz found himself aboard a stock car in Bakersville, California, driving in the SRL Pro Late Model Series at Kern County Raceway. It might have seemed like a phase at the time, an outlet for one's urge to drive fast without wrapping their car around a tree, but for Frankie, this was part of a much broader set of plans and ideals for his ambition of world domination. Or on a lesser scale, a berth on the NASCAR grid. In February 2022, he partook in a test at Daytona, driving an ARCA machinery. In an extremely basic sense, you could regard this as a 4th tier to the NASCAR ladder. And with Frankie gracing the series with his presence, that meant either one of two things: that he would treat this as a cool hobby that he can compete in between shoots, or that he was dead-ass serious and would treat this as the first step in his ascent up the ladder toward the big dance, the NASCAR Cup Series. So, silly hobby or serious obsession? Guess which one of these pathways that dear old Frankie elected to f it. Here's the press release. Kicking off the year 2023, he would sign with Rhett Jones Racing to drive full-time in the ARCA series. And this wasn't some tiddlywinks run around and have fun kind of affair. He was going to be aiming for the championship. He was taking this very seriously. He was fully committed to this championship, running a full schedule, racing week in and week out. He had aspirations to progress up the ladder and declared himself a full-time professional stock car driver. At the age of 37, he was reinventing himself. He really was prepared to turn his back on Hollywood to make NASCAR his full unabashed vocation. Oh yeah, and there was something else too. Some freaky deaky voodoo Illuminati stuff that of course could only have been conjured up from some schlub traversing from the world of Hollywood. The chassis that he would be using that year was the same one used by Sterling Marlin in 2001. Yeah, and? Make your point, you loudmouth malcontent. Well, first off, that's a damn old chassis. The flex in that thing would have made it more limber than water. But more importantly, from a storytelling narrative, it was the same car used in the Daytona 500 race way back then in 2001. The same race that Frankie had attended as a guest of honor, in that pace car leading them around to the start. The same car driven by one of the 3 drivers that weekend that he had gotten an autograph from. The same car involved in the last lap wreck that claimed the life of Dale Earnhardt.
What are the odds?
For the general public, I don't really know if anybody was really taking him seriously, because even though he did have that open wheel racing experience from years gone by, stock car racing is a whole different kettle of fish. To a lot of people, this just looks like a bunch of dumb rednecks running around in circles with no intellectual nous required. But the art of racing on these ovals and maximizing everything out of it means that virtually every outsider who's come in and tried to run with the best have had their asses handed to them. Multiple Formula 1 drivers have attempted to make their mark in this category, yet how many have actually won here? Open wheelers are light, nimble, and fun to drive. To drive a stock car is like trying to drive James Corden. So skepticism for Frankie to try and effectively relearn how to race at this age certainly ran high. But despite all them doubts, after just a few races, they kind of had to take him seriously. After keeping his nose clean at Daytona and recovering from this spin in Phoenix to finish 6th, he went into the third round at Talladega second in the standings, 10 points behind the leader. When that race was done and dusted, race fans were greeted with a sight so horrifying that it shook the ARCA fanbase to its core. Frankie Muniz was officially the championship leader. After initially being looked at as a bit of a joke, Frankie was making a serious claim for that title with a clean, solid run against some credible opponents. This was good stuff from him. Things at this stage were looking pretty damn good. Until they weren't. All the way up to the halfway point of the season, his results were decent. For someone effectively relearning the formula, it was a pretty fair effort. The problem was that other drivers around him were kind of better. The young prospect Jesse Love was demolishing the field and running away with the championship, and gradually other drivers started to haul him in on the points tally as well. This, along with a poor end of the season, meant that he would finish the year 4th in the points standings, which ain't too bad when you take it at face value, but he was merely a couple good finishes away from maintaining 2nd in that championship, because a B+ looks a lot better on a report card than a C average. Yeah, you would also think that with Frankie coming from open wheelers, that his niche would lie more on road course racing. You know, the ones with corners that go left and right? That should have been more his bread and butter, but it turned out to be not that much more different, especially seeing as how drivers such as Love, Zilich, and Sandwich were all pretty good road course racers themselves. There was a lot that he could have taken from this season and used to good effect for another stint at the ARCA series in 2024 and perhaps yield a better championship tilt in his hopes for his ascension up the NASCAR ladder. But no. He ran a limited schedule in that championship with only 2 appearances. He didn't actually race much of anything that year, and it appeared that after much fanfare, things had ground to a halt once again. Though it was during that year that he would make appearances in the higher categories of NASCAR, the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. They were fleeting visits, but he was merely one step away from the show, the NASCAR Cup Series. He said that he was working tirelessly to get back racing full time. He hadn't given up on his dreams just yet, and in October 2024, that wish came true, with him announcing that he would race full-time in 2025 in the Truck Series for Reaume Brothers Racing. How has that season transpired thus far? Well, to put it nicely, it's been, challenging. Apart from a 10th placing at the opening round at Daytona, the rest of the year so far has been a slog, seldom breaking out of the bottom rung of drivers, always drowning badly in the lower realms of purgatory. Although there was that one occasion in Michigan where he was on course for an amazing result. After escaping a cataclysmic melting of brain cells on a restart, he lined up for the next one, nestled in 3rd. But he threw all that away when he started in the wrong gear and allowed everyone behind him to just go on by, blowing his chance at a possible victory. Despite this breakthrough moment, he had admitted to having hit a low point mentally, and while it is commendable for him to be talking about these struggles, and you do have to sympathize with everything that he's going through, it did also highlight just how hard it is to be competitive in these bricks. So where does he go from this point on? Honestly, I have no idea. There is a mini-series revival of Malcolm in the Middle in the pipeline due for release in December this year. That'll be out soon, and doubtless many will be looking forward to seeing those characters back again. Whether this rejuvenates Frankie's desire to get back into acting full-time, well, I mean, who knows? Though even with the allure of Hollywood beckoning to him, you can tell how dedicated he is toward this NASCAR gig. He obviously doesn't want to be typecast, and I don't blame him. Even if the hat is kind of over the wall, he doesn't want to be tied to this one show stranded as a relic of the new millennium. He wants to prove to himself, his kids, his family, and whoever else cares to listen, that whatever your dream is, it's 100% worth chasing. It's been bizarre. Really bizarre, but who really cares? What should stop one doing what they want to do? Something that tells the world that you're not the boss of me now. Help you forget that life is unfair. Just make life what you want it to be. I honestly wish him nothing but the best, because those feel-good stories of the underdog taking the spoils is what we all live for, especially in this fickle world that we call motor racing. Only question is, will this ever really work out for Frankie? Yes. No. Maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question?